First story. After years of NC with his family, OP gave them a second chance for Christmas. But they couldn't stop humiliating him, so he packed his presents and stormed off. Now family begging for a third chance. Okay, in the past couple of years, I started making enough that I bought a house, and I still have plenty after the monthly bills. My family has all been pranksters, and at times entitled my whole life. But on Christmas Eve, they took the cake. I was in NC with them for years. But they convinced me to reconnect after I moved closer. For gifts, I got them all good stuff, like tablets for kids with built-in DVD players, sports memorabilia and camping stuff for my dad, brother, and uncle, specific antiques, jewelry, and appliances for my mom, sister, and aunt. I brought my girlfriend with me, as the little family she has is horrid. So she was delighted to spend Christmas Eve with my family. Everything was going smoothly, and I warned my family. No pranks on me or my girlfriend. At all. They swore none would happen. But they could not resist. We got attacked by silly strings from multiple fronts. That stuff reeks and gets everywhere. Somehow, we powered through that. But then came the gifts. I wasn't expecting much. But none of them even tried. I got dollar store cooking utensils, a pair of insanely ugly holiday socks that I confirmed were also dollar store, and a pink hat. And that was just from my parents. They all kept snickering and recording me as I unwrapped random junk. One is a used mirror on a car I no longer own. And the one gift I gave to my girlfriend was a bottle of fart spray. I told them I'd had enough, and they'd agreed to no pranks. Long story short, they weren't just gag gifts. They were the only presents there for us. I had enough, and just started gathering up all the presents I'd brought. They all freaked out and demanded I give them back. I told them all that they didn't change one bit, and they could kiss all of that stuff goodbye. We bagged everything and stormed out. The family keeps calling and messaging me that I'm being greedy. I couldn't take a joke. I couldn't think of anything to get me, and the kids are crying. I don't need to go on. AITA. I've refused to return any of the presents. Comments. Successful bath wanting 200. NTA. It's not like you didn't warn them. It's time to go to NC with them again. Anything you can't return to the shop, it came from to get your money back, or that you can't use yourself. Give to a charity, and tell them that's what you did. Feral cat. NTA. And I am going to add that I am proud of you for following through on your well-stated boundaries. You deserve better. Judgment. NTA. Update. My girlfriend recently saw my original post on YouTube and asked that I update it here. I previously posted in another subreddit about what my family did to me on Christmas Eve. Back at work. Word of what happened with my family spread around the office when it shouldn't have. I talked about it to just one friend at lunch, a few days after making my first Reddit post, and the office gossip just happened to be hiding nearby, listening to every word I said. Within a few days, it was all over the office, and someone in the office was apparently social media friends with my brother. In short, my family found out about my Reddit post, and they went off about how they thought I was a brat who couldn't take a joke. I told them the 400 NTA comments said otherwise. Then they tried to say I didn't tell the truth. I asked them to read the post over the phone and tell me if it was a lie. Well, their recollection was suddenly quite bad, because I made it clear every detail was on point. I even still have the messages from them confirming numerous details. They tried gaslighting, but I wasn't having it. I was never going to let them try to rewrite history again. My mother resorted to crocodile tears and guilt. But I called her and my father out as self-serving narcissists who played favorites and would rather make me the bad guy so they wouldn't have to feel bad about themselves. They didn't deserve to berate me or cry for sympathy when they had been complicit in my misery since childhood. Then I hung up on them. They tried calling back again and again, but I refused to pick up, and I deleted all of their voicemails. But I kept the text just in case I'd need to go to a lawyer. More people in the extended family were made aware after links to my Reddit account got around. Initially, some sided with my parents and brother, but they quickly switched sides when they saw the writing on the wall. My parents then tried to turn my brother into the new scapegoat for the situation since it couldn't be me. And then it turned into a chicken fight. After about 2 weeks, my parents showed up at my door to try and get me to talk to them. But I refused. I found out later that other relatives called them 50-plus-year-old children, and they owed me a lifetime of apologies. My brother apparently doubled down on saying that what they did was funny and refused to admit any wrongdoing. But his wife and even his own kids were furious at him. He was made to delete the videos he recorded of me at Christmas by the rest of the family. And he blamed me for it because I ruined his best prank yet. My sil ended up slapping him and calling him a man-child, then saying she'd never been so humiliated to be his wife. She was apparently unaware of what my family put me through growing up until the Christmas prank because I'd hardly seen her before cutting contact with my family. Then she gave him an ultimatum: marriage counseling and a sincere apology to me, or she would leave him. My brother stubbornly refused, and his wife took the kids and left for a few days. He then came to my house while intoxicated and yelled that it was all my fault, and I was a baby who couldn't take a joke. Then he started demanding I talk to his wife and fix things. I had to call our parents to come get him before I had the police take him away. They showed up mortified and screaming at him to shut the hell up. After a few more days, my parents begged me to come over and speak to them. It took me a while to agree. And when I did, my brother was there with them, looking like a kicked puppy. His wife had actually gone to get a consultation from a divorce lawyer. And my brother finally realized this was for real. And unless he acknowledged he was a massive a-hole, his life would be ruined. His wife did come back for the sake of keeping the kids in school. But even after months, my brother is still in the doghouse. My brother and parents apologized and admitted they never expected me to show up with such nice gifts and figured I wasn't likely to bring anything since I hadn't seen them in years. And they'd pranked me so much that it finally clicked with them why I'd previously gone without contact. And even though I showed up with real gifts, they went ahead with their plan anyway since the prank gifts were already there under the tree, and they somehow thought I'd share in the humor. They thought wrong. I told them they would never apologize like this if they weren't humiliated for their actions. To which they actually agreed and started trashing themselves. Then I asked if the apologies they'd given me before were totally insincere and just a ploy to lure me back into the family. They couldn't say they were or weren't. I'm not sure even they know anymore. So then I had a very frank discussion with them about my childhood and why I might never want to associate with them again. They didn't argue with a single point I made. All the mistreatment, all the favoritism, all the scapegoating. Why? Because I was the unwanted child. I didn't ask to be born. And it sure as hell shouldn't have taken that long just for them to realize what kind of steaming piles of crap they were as people. They just sat there, looking at the floor, while I ranted at them. And my mother was crying and blaming herself and my father. And my father started blaming her, saying it all started with her. My brother once in his life knew when to shut the hell up and accept fault. And when he finally did speak, he owned up to everything. Since it was too late to return the gifts to the store, by the time I'd made my AITA post, the presents I took back were left in my garage, just sitting in a pile. I ended up donating all of them to a local church for a charity rummage sale. So all of that stuff went to people other than my relatives. I was chastised by many for taking the gifts back from the kids too. But they were sharing in the delight of laughing at me that day. And now they have learned from the consequences that it was good to have while still young. That said, my mother kind of negated that by going rogue and buying the exact same tablet DVD combo players for the kids that I did. My father was apparently furious with her at first because she put it all on their credit card. Each of those tablets was around $150, but the fight about it didn't last long. My brother and Sil have been going to marriage counseling, and it's forced my brother to open his eyes. Our parents raised him to be the way he is, but he also kept it up well into adulthood. I've kept moderate contact with my family for the sake of getting to know my nieces, and they're actually good kids. They don't blame me for taking the gifts back anymore, because they understand how angry I was at Christmas. I had my birthday in March at a local pizza parlor, and my family was invited. It was literally their last chance. And shockingly, they did not blow it. They couldn't figure out what to get me, so they gifted me a large card with $100 cash in it and a "will do better" apology written on the card. They also gave my girlfriend a set of sterling silver earrings as a big apology as makeup for Christmas since she'd refused to see them in person till then. It hasn't really been long enough since then for me to have any other kinds of details, other than that things seem to be pleasantly normal now. No more pranks for me. They've even stopped doing them to each other. The whole situation just ruined what made it funny for them to begin with. Also, for all those who previously commented or DM'd me saying tablet DVD player combos don't exist, look them up for crying out loud. They do exist, and kids who have them love them. The ones my mother got my nibblings have barely left their hands since getting them. Lastly, I did report the office gossip that caused me to get ratted out by my brother to HR. And that was just one thing in a line of complaints against them. So they were finally written up. And she has been avoiding me as much as possible at work since then. TLDR. Office gossip made my family find out about my original post. A crap show ensued. The family was forced to admit wrongdoing after my Sil took the kids and threatened divorce. The family finally owned up to their misdeeds against me, and is still apologetic. Office gossip got written up for what they did. Comments. Fine and 9. I'm glad your family finally woke up and saw what DCKS they were being. I hope they are sincere in wanting to fix themselves and the relationship. But no matter how hard they might seem to be trying, if they screw up again, they don't deserve another chance. Daylily61. I never saw your first post, Custard, until I came across this one. What perfectly horrible people your parents and brother must be. No wonder you had no contact with them for so long. Here's hoping you and your girlfriend have all the peace and happiness together you can hold. Second story. Entitled husband took his autistic niece without asking OP and forced her to take care of her all alone. Now begging for a second chance after she filed for divorce. AITA for getting my job back to take care of my husband's autistic niece. My husband, 30M, became the legal guardian of his sister's daughter, 17F, 2 months ago. She lost her single mom last year. My in-laws took her in, but they were too old. That was when my husband became her legal guardian, despite my concerns. He told me that he would take care of her completely. We got married a year ago after 15 years of dating. I had a very successful career in a very physically and mentally demanding field. I had to travel a lot. We wanted to start a family, and I agreed to be a stay-at-home mom. I quit my job a few months into the marriage when I got pregnant. Sadly, I had a miscarriage. Then his sister died, and everything is on hold. In the meantime, I took a part-time job in a related field that allows remote work, so that I am not bored out of my mind. My sister was a nurse. She quit her job to take care of her daughter full-time. Her daughter has a variety of issues, including nonverbal autism, a series of developmental disorders like dyslexia, and severe sensory issues. My husband says that he does most of the work. But he doesn't. Since I am working part-time from home, most of the caretaking falls to me. She gets angry and has meltdowns all the time. She doesn't like the food I make, and most of the time she ends up throwing food on the floor or at me. I am at my wit's end, and it is just so emotionally exhausting. Around December 15, my husband was working late and asked me to take care of dinner. She is very picky about food. The slightest change in texture or taste from what she is used to can cause a meltdown. She threw the plate at my feet, and I ended up bleeding. At that point, I called my husband and asked him to be home as soon as possible. He said he wouldn't be able to. I went up to my room and told him I was not dealing with this anymore. He came hours later, and she was still crying. He was absolutely furious at me. He called me heartless and irresponsible. I told him I had had enough of both of their ungrateful behavior and told him that I was going to my mom's and wouldn't be back until New Year's. He panicked and tried to apologize, but I left. He called me every day, asking me to come back. I finally came back, and he told me that my stunt had forced him to take all available leaves to stay home with her. He told me that he was glad I was back. I told him that I contacted my former company and got my old job back, and it starts next Monday. It is in office and requires a lot of travel. He asked me who was supposed to stay at home as she cannot be left alone. He has no more leaves, and full-time caretakers are too expensive. I told him he had promised to take care of everything when he became her guardian, and that it was his problem. As you can guess, my family supports me, and his family thinks I am being extremely selfish. So I am asking for judgment from impartial strangers. AITA in this situation. Update. A lot of people were messaging me for an update. So here goes. I wish I could say things got better. My husband took a few days off to interview special needs nurses and caretakers. He ended up finding a good and experienced person to take on the job. He hired her for 9 to 6 during the week. One day, she ended up saying she could not make it for a couple of days due to an emergency. My husband had a meeting he couldn't miss, and he asked me to look after his niece for the day. I refused, and he took my car keys while I was getting ready and left before I noticed, so that I could not go to work. I grew up with a narcissistic, gaslighting father who did stuff like this all the time. I told him to come back in an hour, or I would call CPS, and once they got there, I would call a cab and get to work. He ended up driving back, and this turned into a big fight, and I told him that if he does it again, I will walk out and never look back. He apologized and said that he was just desperate. The worst happened 2 weeks ago. I needed to travel for a couple of weeks for work, and I could not find my passport. I am a very organized person, and I knew that I would not miss it. I ended up calling the non-emergency helpline. They ransacked the house and found the passports hidden in his gym bag. It is a crime to steal passports, and they asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said no. Another fight. He told me that he needed me at home that weekend due to a social welfare visit, and he knew that I would not stay, even if he had asked me. I kicked them both out of my house, and I told him I would call the police if he came near me again. My house is a premarital asset. Thank God for that. I told him that I would be filing for divorce. The welfare visit turned into SHT, as neither of them were living there when the worker showed up, and the social worker also knew about the recent call to the non-emergency helpline. So, all in all, she was not impressed with our bullshit. He came by 2 days ago. He told me that he ended up moving in with his parents. They own and live in a small 2-bedroom apartment. That doesn't qualify according to welfare norms. He ended up asking me for another chance. He asked if I would consider letting him and his niece stay until they figure it out, or if she would have to go to the state's care. He told me that there is no way he can afford rent and a caregiver, and he begged me. I told him that I could never forgive what he did. He knew my past with my father, and he still went ahead and did it. He suggested they could move in, and we can work on this at the couple's counseling. I told him that I could never trust him again, and that it was over. He asked me if he could get his parents to take in the niece, or even relinquish her care to the state, and if I would give him another chance. I think months' worth of anger burst that day. I told him that even though it may appear as if the problem between us was his niece, it was actually him. He didn't ask me before taking her in. He did nothing to help. He waved my concerns away whenever I felt burned out. He took on a responsibility without consulting me and dumped everything on me. He chose to take my keys. He chose to hide my passport. I told him things may have been different. His niece and I may have adapted and become a family if he hadn't made the wrong choice at my expense at every turn. I told him to get out of my house. It was over, and I never want to see any of them again. I still don't know if what I am doing is right or wrong. I know people wanted some sort of happy ending, but it is what it is. I still have not started the divorce proceedings yet, but I will soon. For now, I am taking a break, as it has been a very emotional and draining couple of weeks. Third story. Delusional boyfriend pranked OP, who has face blindness, by disguising himself to test her loyalty. Now, he is begging for a second chance after she broke up with him. Hi y'all, sorry for posting this. If it's not okay, I can delete it. I've been with my boyfriend for almost a year now. I love him dearly, and he loves me too, I'm guessing. But there's one thing that's causing a lot of issues for us. I suffer from prosopagnosia, or face blindness, which means it's really hard for me to recognize people's faces. I usually go by other characteristics to give a name to a person, like hairstyle or facial hair, marks, skin colors, accessories, etc. But it's still really tough. It's caused me severe anxiety and other mental health struggles. I'm lucky to have wonderful people around me though, who are aware and try to help. They'll introduce themselves when we start talking, wear something they know I've linked to them, or whatever. Usually my boyfriend does this too, but sometimes he likes to test me, and it's incredibly stressful. He shaved off his beard once. A few times he wore a completely different style of clothing, or changed his hairstyle, all without warning me. In those moments, he won't tell me who he is or say someone else's name, just to see if I'll figure out it's him. He'll make jokes, saying he'll try to switch with one of his friends and see if I'll stay loyal. I usually do realize it's him, but it causes me a lot of anxiety. We've had big fights over this. He says he's allowed to change his look. I'm not a cartoon character. I ask him to warn me. Don't get me wrong. He cares about me, but I don't think he gets how stressful it is. How do I make it clear? We have a lot of great times together. There's just this bump. Update. It's hard to imagine. I made this post 19 hours ago, and now I'm in the middle of breaking up with him. I'm very tired, so I'm going to keep this short. I went to talk to him, showed him this, and told him he couldn't do it anymore. The conversation was long. First he was angry I made this post. Then he was angry I was taking it all so seriously. Lots of apologies, and so on. He again said he was just trying to make a tough situation more light. I said it's too much. He said I can't take a joke, and I need to let him be him. He always tells me when he's been joking, and if he was really keen on hurting me, he'd just do things and not tell me, so his telling proves he cares. That one got me very uncomfortable. At one point, he said he just wanted to test if it was real, because I could just be using it as an excuse to do anything. I left after that because we were just going in circles. There was a lot of me making an issue of one small thing. I'm exhausted. He's still blowing up my phone with love and apologies, but you guys made me realize a lot. Thanks, really. I'm trying to stay rational about it, but it's hard because I do care about him a lot. I'm going to get a few hours of sleep. Thank you again. Relevant comments. Cheap depth 2155. He is messing with your safety. Does he not realize that? OP. I don't think he realizes how confusing it all is. There's been a moment when he did the opposite, acting all weirded out when I thanked him for a nice date, saying it wasn't him. And though I knew it was, I still started to doubt myself. He did say it was a joke soon after, but it caused such a panic. He hasn't done it again, but it took me a long time to feel comfortable again. SHT Mike, it says. Making someone feel unsafe is not a joke. Gaslighting someone you care about is not a joke. Louisville. Holy smikes, that's terrifying. Not to recognize a familiar face with a major change like that. That is like nightmare fuel. The fact that your boyfriend does it to you multiple times on purpose is scary. I don't know if there is a way you can explain it to him if he doesn't get it. It seems he enjoys your panic, which is not a good thing in a partner. If this was my partner, I would get a tattoo or something. And I don't have any. OP. My dad actually got a tattoo on his arm for me, which is a great comfort. I hadn't realized how messed up everything is until reading all these replies. Legitimate debate 5014. Your boyfriend is basically abusing you in emotional situations. He thinks it's hilarious that you struggle and get severe anxiety, which isn't normal, nor does it mean he cares about you. This is a huge red flag. OP. Abuse is a really big word, but I do agree it's not okay. I'm seeing him soon. We'll see how it goes. Update. Hi y'all. I hope it's okay. I posted a little update. Things went bat SHT crazy. A lot has happened in the last few days. I'm really grateful to you all, honestly. I wasn't aware of the real meaning of his pranks and what they said about him and our relationship. I went to talk to him the same evening I made that post, with the intention of making it clear he can't pull all that off anymore. The conversation escalated. We talked for hours into the night and every day since. There's been a lot of messaging. He got angry about the Reddit post I made, which I showed him, angry at you guys, angry that I couldn't take a joke and listen to strangers. Said things like he in the beginning didn't believe I actually suffered from it and would use it as an excuse to cheat on him. That now he does believe, but due to bad breakups in the past, he has a hard time trusting that I won't use it as an excuse regardless. He said he was joking about it because he wanted to make a tough situation lighter, and that's just his sense of humor. If I loved him, I'd accept that. When I made it clear I was done, it got even worse. He began apologizing a lot. He said he didn't realize it was such a big thing for me again. It didn't make any sense with all that was said before. In the same breath, he said that he at least told me. To the people who thought he actually had planned to trick me by using one of his friends, I think y'all may be very right. To be honest, I was done. I do care about him a lot, I can't just shut that off. But it's never going to work. There have been many messages, calls, etc. He dropped some vague hints that sometimes he pulled pranks I wasn't aware of. I don't know if that is true or if he's just in a bad place right now. He also came to my place to apologize again. But I suspect he didn't expect I'd immediately recognize him, as he didn't apologize until I said his name. He's not evil, but just very messed up. I blocked him everywhere, told him not to show up anymore, and told him that a friend would give him his stuff. I'm going to delete this account soon, but I wanted to thank you guys for helping me realize it. I genuinely don't think I would have. I'm heartbroken, but a bit relieved as well. Thanks for all the support and kindness. Relevant comments. Trippahippie. I'm glad you broke up. Someone who loves you shouldn't ever do that to you. I was just curious about your condition. Do you also have issues recognizing voices as well as faces? I can only imagine how hard it must be to deal with. OP. Actually, voices are one of the traits I use to recognize someone. Voices, posture, tattoos, hairstyles, and so on. Thank you loads. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.